One day, a man decided to take an Uber. He flew out into the airport and decided to take an Uber home instead of riding a bus or whatever. He took the Uber because it was about an hour from the airport to his home. And he was, you know how after you ride in a car for a while, things kind of fall silent and you kind of get into your own world. And he needed to ask a question of the driver, so he kind of leaned up to tap on his shoulder to get his attention. And the driver screamed and he swerved off the road, up over a curb, and he almost hit this storefront. And after a moment, of petrified silence, the driver turned around and he goes, are you okay? I'm so sorry, but you scared the daylights out of me. And the passenger's like, oh, no, I'm sorry. I had no idea that tapping on your shoulder would frighten someone so badly. And the driver said, no, it's my bad, I'm sorry. It's entirely my fault. Today is my very first day to drive for Uber, and I've been driving a hearse for 25 years. Welcome to the month of February. As I mentioned last Sunday, we're going to be exploring every month about how we can be more active in our spirituality. How can we actually do something to make our lives better and to make our world a better place? I've really never thought of this teaching or this organization as a kind of religion where you just come and sit down on a Sunday and hear some good things, and then you kind of go back and live the same life that you've been living, Monday through Saturday. This is a spirituality for our generation, for these times, for this moment on the planet. And it calls us forward into action on every level. And today, I'm going to be exploring and reminding you about the concept of oneness and only oneness. That's our theme this morning, oneness. And oneness is everything in this teaching. Oneness is actually the basis of our entire philosophy, our entire world view. Who we are as metaphysicians and religious scientists, all of it is based in this concept of oneness. And when we allow oneness to be the basis of our individual lives, of our personal worldview, of where we live from, what we think, what we speak, and what we do, we contribute to an ethical world, a moral world, and a world that truly does work for everyone. The little funny story I told at the beginning about the Uber driver illustrates that no matter what we are doing, we bring our own individual energy, our own individual history into that situation, into the interactions that we're having with every single other person on the planet. So let's explore this topic because it greatly impacts our lives. So first of all, let's look at what I mean by oneness. Oneness means that any separation that you experience from anyone and anything else is an illusion. It's a false perspective. So let me give you some illustrations so you can consider these illustrations to kind of know what I mean. First of all, a wave. No matter how high it rises, how much it splashes out of the ocean into its individual expression, it's still a part of the ocean, and the ocean is all that it is. It might feel special and different from its neighbor wave, but they are one. Or you could consider a branch or a twig on a tree. It might twist off in its own direction with its own little fruit and flowers and other twigs and whatever blowing in the breeze in some kind of a unique way, but it's still a part of the tree. It's part of the roots too. It gets a little tricky, but it's also part of the soil and it's part of the water and the air. Oneness. And we as human beings, we think of ourselves as individuals. separate from everyone else. Our perspective is that whatever happens to us is just happening to us. It's my life, it's happening. We have our story that separates us into our own uniqueness, different from and distant from everyone else. And we base that perspective on our 5 senses. You know, I can see that, you know, my skin ends here and your skin and your body begins there. But what we cannot see with our 5 senses are the subtle bodies that we carry, our energy field that extends out from our physical bodies infinitely. And it blends and merges with everyone else's subtle bodies. We are, in fact, one. You know, I kind of like to think of it like a video game. You know, each character and element in the game appears to be separate. However, if you look more and more and more closely, they're made up of these little digital pixels, these electrical impulses that are completely one great expression. Whatever you do to the pixels of one impact and affect the entire picture. There's only one source of energy animating all of it. Doesn't that sound familiar, right? Oneness is where we all exist. We are all points of light in a greater light that is the universe, the divine, God, one. And that is true of every human being, but it's also true of every animal, every planet, every rock, every tree, every grain of sand. We're as much as one with the tree as we are with our first cousin. And we're in relationship with all of it because it is what we are, and we are what it is. Here's the thing about oneness. It's very interesting. We are each individually deciding whether we will live in alignment with the principle of oneness or not. See, even though it's a universal truth and the essential identity of each one of us, we get to decide whether we live in oneness perspective or separation perspective. We get to choose whether we see ourselves as connected to all, to everyone else, to God itself, or not. And this choice impacts our lives immensely. Reverend Michael Beckwith talked about this on Wednesday night when he described the 2 worlds, right? In one world, and he jumped one way and another, I won't even try. In one world, we are separate. We are small. We are uniquely wounded. We have to protect ourselves. And then in another world, we are divine. We are infinite. We are love itself. And we get to choose which world we live in. And if we choose to see ourselves as separate, you know, perhaps because we feel wounded or defensive or betrayed or whatever, hurt, or perhaps we learn to identify ourselves as unworthy or less than, or even better than other people, separate from other people. If we see ourselves as separate, we treat the world as separate. That sense of separation shows up in one major way: fear. When we think that other people are different than we are, that they have different capabilities, different motivations, different desires than we do, we feel like we must protect ourselves and distance ourselves. Fear causes us to build walls and hoard resources and take care of only those who somehow seem like us. Fear causes us to think that we are either superior or inferior to others. Fear causes us to project our judgments onto the screen of our experience and draw to us experiences that appear to justify our fears. See, a sense of separation has us constantly pointing out all of the ways that people are different than we are. Oh, he's smarter than me, she's richer than me, they have had more opportunities than me, or it may sound like those people are scary, they want to hurt people, or he's just greedy, or she doesn't have what it takes. We're verbally emphasizing our separateness. Listen for this. Listen for it in your own language and in the words of those around you, because you're listening to separation. You're listening to this world. But if we can retrain our minds, if we can retrain our brains to see the oneness and see ourselves as a part of the one goodness that is the center of everything and everyone, if we can identify ourselves as a unique part of the whole, a beautiful individual thread in the tapestry of life, if that's how we can see ourselves, life changes. The sense of oneness shows up in one major way: love. When we understand that other people are the same as us, we realize that everyone has the same energy flowing through them. The same potentiality, the same desires, the same motivations. Love causes us to build bridges instead of walls, and to share resources instead of hoard them, and to extend compassion to everyone, no matter how far away or how unique they may be. Love allows any sense of superiority or inferiority to evaporate, because we realize that on a deep level, the only thing that makes us different are the choices that we made along the way. So instead of projecting our judgments onto the screen of our experiences, we project compassion and understanding. And whatever we project, we draw to us. We draw to us experiences more and more that illustrate our similarities with other people, with all sentient beings, human or animal. Love has us constantly looking for our commonalities instead of our differences. It sounds like this: I've hurt like they're hurting. I have been afraid, so I know why you're acting that way. She's crying salty tears, and I know what that tastes like on my face. He is so happy, and I recognize that joy. I've made the same mistake, so I can forgive. Or even, I've never made that mistake, but boy, I can understand how fear or anger could lead someone to do that. Oneness is a life choice, and it's a powerful life choice. Oneness is the root of every good we wish to extend to the world. And as I've already said, it's an identity of oneness that is the basis of compassion and empathy and love. Oneness is the root of forgiveness. Hurt people hurt people. And I have definitely hurt people out of my own hurt in my own life. I might not be hurting other people right now in this moment, but I can certainly forgive others in their ignorance of their oneness and their fear of others. I get it. And oneness is the root of generosity. See, when I understand oneness, I realize that whatever good I give away, I'm actually giving it to myself. I'm giving it to the one. Whenever I help another person, I am helping them all. When I extend a hand up or a hand out, my good is never depleted. It is only multiplied. Only multiplied. Ernest Holmes says this: life is an eternal givingness, the offering of the cosmic self to the joy of its own fulfillment. You and I are a part of this joy, and we find fulfillment only as this joy passes through us to others. Everything moves in circles, and we short-circuit our good when we refuse to pass it on. Everything moves in circles. Everything is cyclical. And if we stop the flow with us, we are short-circuiting everything in life. We stop the flow of joy into our lives when we refuse to extend joy to others. We stop the flow of love into our hearts when we refuse to give love to others. We stop the flow of resources when we refuse to pass resources on. We stop the flow of acceptance into our own experience, and we all desire to be accepted, but we stop it when we refuse to accept someone else. We stop the flow of trust being extended to us when we refuse to trust others. Generosity is in alignment with oneness. Because when we live connected in our consciousness, in our thoughts, in our words, and in our actions and choices, we intensify the eternal givingness of God. Our joy melds with the joy of the all. our abundance becomes the abundance of the universe. Our love merges with cosmic love. The light that flows through us energizes us and becomes the light of God itself. Don't play small. Merge yourself. Identifying as separate keeps us small. When you refuse to join with the divine flow of energy, light, love, joy, abundance, peace, all that good stuff, you are only able to tap into your own individual measure. And you get to decide. Do you want to be individual and separate, or do you want to meld with the all? Your choice. See, when we were growing up, we're encouraged to be fiercely independent. Sometimes when we get hurt, we declare to ourselves, that's it. I'm not relying on anyone else or anything else but me. I can only trust me. But living behind that wall is cutting off your good. That's right. Accepting oneness is accepting that we are held in spirit and we can rely on spirit in any situation. When we're faced with a person or a situation that appears to be frightening or seems to contain some sort of a risk, we learn to lean on spirit, on a consciousness of oneness. Holmes wrote this: developing confidence in ourselves, in our ability to meet and handle all undesirable situations, requires that we must have confidence in something which is greater than we are. Then we will have spiritual self-reliance. I love that, spiritual self-reliance. When this is done, the lesser must always submit to the greater. Weakness will give way to strength. Despair will turn to hope. Hate will become love. Failure will become success. Sickness will dissolve into health. The action that takes place is not one of despotic or overruling harshness, but one that moves in harmony, love, beauty, warmth, and order, quietly transforming all that is unlike it. And what are we required to do? We're just required to align ourselves with it. And I think we consider ourselves like light workers or spiritual warriors, and what we're focusing on this year when we think of ourselves as actively spiritual, we have the opportunity to better the world around us. If we want to make a difference in our community, in Tampa Bay itself, we can know a good for ourselves and claim a good for ourselves. And in the oneness, that betters everyone. When we improve our own sense of connection, we automatically improve the sense of connection for everyone around us, and that extends infinitely. Holmes reminds us, as long as our desire does not interfere with the good of everyone and everything else in the oneness, the universe is responsive to our request for happiness. Our textbook explains it this way: there is nothing in the universal order that denies the individual's good or self-expression, as long as such self-expression does not contradict the general good, does not contradict goodness with a capital G itself. There is nothing in the universe that denies us the right to be happy, if our happiness does not deny or interfere with the general good. The universe remains unlimited, though the whole world has suffered a sense of limitation. So the whole world thinks that there's a limit to the good that we can have, but the universe remains unlimited. That being said, it is our ethical duty to seek our happiness, to heal our sense of separation, for the general good of the universe, not just for us. We must see our happiness, our emotional, spiritual, and physical, mental health as part of our relationship with the world around us. So in our book of the month, Beyond Religion, if you want a good read, this is an eye-opener. Beyond Religion, Ethics for a Whole World. It's written by the Dalai Lama, and it's very readable and enjoyable. He says this: self and others can only really be understood in terms of relationship. We see that self-interest and others' interest are closely interrelated. Indeed, with this picture of dependently originated reality, In other words, we all come out of the one, so we are all sharing this one origination. We see that there is no self-interest completely unrelated to others' interests. Due to the fundamental interconnectedness which lies at the heart of reality, so underneath the surface, we're all interconnected. Your interest is also my interest. From this, it becomes clear that my interest and your interest are intimately connected. In a deep sense, they converge. And because we all emerge from the one, we are in fact one. You know, we sing in our closing song, we're about to sing it in a little bit. With God as our center, united all are we. Let us walk with each other in peaceful harmony. Whatever you create, you're creating it for all of us, for all of the world. We've got to take that responsibility seriously. The Dalai Lama goes on and says, the concept of dependent origination compels us to take the reality of cause and effect with utmost seriousness. By this I mean the fact that particular causes lead to particular effects, and that certain actions lead to suffering while others lead to happiness. So it is in everybody's interest to do what leads to happiness and avoid that which leads to suffering. And because, as we have all seen, our interests are inextricably linked, we are compelled to accept ethics as the indispensable interface between my desire to be happy and yours. So my happiness is not independent of yours or anyone else's in the world. So if we do things in our best interest, we realize that we must be doing something in their best interest at the same time. I wrote about this in the newsletter this week about seeking a win-win. Seeking a win-win. My desire to be happy and your desire to be happy are the same. We have to work towards that. The interests of the one call us to consider the ethical and social implication of our words and actions, to speak words and take actions that increase the good for all, to consider how our actions ripple across the universe, infinitely ripple across the universe. And we have to ask ourselves, if God is showing up as me, through me, what do I deeply desire that to look like? So I have an affirmation that I'd like for you to affirm with me this morning. I am one with all that is. My thoughts, words, and actions are filled with harmony, love, beauty, warmth, and order. I touch the world with love and compassion. And I'll thank Reverend Cece for that. So I want to close with this gorgeous poem by the Sufi poet of love, Hafiz. Light will someday split you open. Even if your life is now a cage, little by little, you will turn into stars. Little by little, you will turn into the whole sweet, amorous universe. Love will surely burst you wide open into an unfettered, booming new galaxy. You will become so free in a wonderful, secret, and pure love that flows from a conscious, one-pointed, infinite light. Even then, my dear, the beloveds will have fulfilled just a fraction of a promise he wrote upon your heart. For a divine seed, the crown of destiny is hidden and sown on an ancient, fertile plain you hold the title to. Oh, look again within yourself, for I know you were once the elegant host to all the marvels in creation. When your soul begins to ever bloom and laugh and spin in eternal ecstasy, oh, little by little, you will turn into God. And so it is.